just be confident in your voice. And if you are knowledgeable in your field, your opinion should be valued, and you worked your way here, so don't sell yourself short.
You're listening to The People of Work, the podcast that dives into the real stories behind what people do for a living and how work shapes who we are. Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the People of Work podcast with Amy Graves. I am here today with our guest, Kylie Bright-Schuler. Kylie is a civil engineer, and we are going to talk about her journey into engineering, and she's also a podcast host, so we're going to talk about that a little bit as well. Kylie, thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Yeah, we're glad to have you. So we're going to dig in and talk about all things work. First of all, I love talking to a female in engineering. I work in tech, so this is a space that I understand as a male-dominated field, and I always think it's cool to share stories of women that are up and coming and building their careers in a field like that. So I can't wait to dig in. But before we dig into your current role at American Structurepoint, I would like to just kind of take it back a little bit and talk about you at home with your parents or whoever you lived with. And I'd like to gain an understanding about what work looked like for you and what kinds of conversations you were having as a young person in your home around work. Can you talk to me a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I feel like I grew up and work was a really positive thing. Both my parents worked. My dad was a company owner, just sold his business in 2021. And my mom worked in medical sales. So both of them very career driven and were working constantly, I would say. But it wasn't really anything negative, like that they were working a lot or that, I had to go to daycare. I know some people without having a working mom, have different perspectives on that, but I had a really great experience, and my mom, I feel like, was a really good role model for me of what I want to be like for my family, and that you can have a career but also be a kick-ass mom too. So yeah, it was all around a really good experience.
Were they talking to you about what you wanted to do when you were older, or did you have an inkling when you were young that you would go into a field like engineering?
Not at all. So my parents, definitely did always ask, what do you want to do? And, the typical responses, I feel like I wanted to be a vet or a cook or, I don't know, just maybe one-off. And I really didn't know what engineering was. It is just such a broad term, so I didn't really have any idea around it. My grandpa, actually, so he's kind of like your typical, like, older generation. He's like, you need to work hard, make a bunch of money, be successful type of thing. And
stay at the same place for 25 years at least, or
right.
maybe 40.
Right. Because he owned the business with my dad. So that's what he's all about. So everyone knew I was kind of good at math and science in high school, and I was definitely going to go to Purdue University just because that's where my family went. And it was I was destined to go there, but I was good at math and science, and I was going to go to Purdue. My grandpa just kind of suggested, hey, you should check out engineering. So that's really the first introduction I had to it. And I got accepted into Purdue engineering program. My thought about it at first was that my idea was like water quality was kind of what I was thinking. Like, I'm going to design wells for people in third world countries. But then I kind of realized that that's not something a lot of people do, really. It's very niche. So then I just got exposed to other types of engineering at Purdue.
So before you went to Purdue, so let's go back to your teenage years, for example. Mm-hmm. Your parents and your grandfather were talking to you about exploring a career in engineering. Obviously, Purdue, for a couple of reasons. One, that was where your family had gone to school, so that there was an interest in kind of continuing that legacy. But also, Purdue is obviously a very well-known school for all different types of engineering. So that makes a ton of sense. I'm curious about, yes, you're good at math and science, but what was it that made you decide, or how did you decide civil engineering or engineering at all?
So really, what intrigued me was environmental engineering, and that was the water quality aspect. So the idea that you can design these water quality treatment for, any municipality has them, but the part that was intriguing was like the traveling to third world countries. I did some mission trips growing up. So That is what really intrigued me specifically. And I didn't know what the possibilities would be within civil engineering specifically, but environmental was where I focused. And yeah, so that's kind of where I started, and it led me obviously in a very different direction now. But that was what was in the back of my mind was, oh, I can provide clean water for and maybe travel to do it. And
I love that. I mean, I often say that where we find so much joy in work is there's some sort of like a heart tug in some way to like, there's some meaning that connects us to the work that we're doing. That to me is a very big, heart tug, right? We're going to go help third world countries have more clean water and access to that. That's amazing. So it sounds
Mhm.
like that was a little more of a niche type of experience that you had to have, and probably not a lot of, engineers that are opportunities for engineers that want to go down that path. So at what point did you decide, I assume it's while you were at Purdue, that you were going to shift gears to a different type of engineering? And tell me about that and how you selected civil engineering specifically.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's a really unique situation because I was actually in the environmental engineering division within agricultural engineering. And I remember for one of my classes, I was going to have to drive a combine simulator for something. And I'm like, well, that doesn't really correlate at all to what I want to do. And then I had an internship where I was working for a firm that I was doing exactly what I'm doing now, but on an intern level, obviously. I'm not doing the exact same thing, but it was the company was what I would be doing now. I thought I didn't want to do that at that time. And so I changed course drastically, actually. So after 2 years in engineering at Purdue, I was still going to do a dual major in environmental engineering and then natural resources environmental science. And with that, I was hoping to do more like wetland investigations. And it's basically the step before civil engineers get involved. So a lot of permitting related items, and you're basically just prepping the site for an engineer to come in and design it.
Can I ask you a quick
Yeah.
question about that? When you say
Yeah.
wetland engineering, I'm envisioning there not being a lot of opportunity for that in Indiana, but maybe I'm wrong. Can you elaborate a little bit about what that means?
Yeah. Sure. So really any type of existing ground that's sitting there to be able to be developed has to go under a wetland investigation. And that's where environmental specialists come out. They do a field report and they basically look around your site and make sure there's no wetlands, and if there are, they need to be permitted. And actually there's almost always at least one wetland on a site. And
Oh,
that
okay.
could just be even a low spot in the ground. So a wetland, it just needs to meet three criteria, if I remember correctly, but it just needs to have the correct vegetation, soil type, and then the third is hydrologic indicators. So it actually is very, very common and it is expensive to permit. So that's why developers try and get ahead of it. It would be nice if you just have a farm field that's very flat and nothing going on. But even sometimes in farm fields, if it's a low point and the conditions are right, it could be classified as a wetland. So that was kind of what I turned into because what intrigued me about it was the field work aspect. I liked the idea of being outside and all the things. And after that previous internship, I was like, I can't be at a desk all day like this. There's no way. But I was also, you know, 19, 20 years old. And so fast forward, and let me know if I'm getting ahead of myself, but I stuck with that major and then I got a job here at American Structurepoint out of college during COVID as an environmental scientist, actually, within our environmental science group. And after about 4 or 5 months of working in that group, it was about February, and I wasn't doing any design. And I really had intended, because that was what I wanted to do at first, was just design. And whether it's water quality or civil site design, which is what I do now, I was getting a little bit of a taste of that within our environmental group, but it was more the science route. I'm 6 months out of school at this point. I'm devastated because my first job wasn't working out. I had actually had another offer somewhere else to do a bridge engineering, which knew nothing about. And I was just like, oh, well, at least I'll be doing engineering. So then when I went to put in my 2 weeks, my boss in the environmental group, he was like, well, you can be in any department here, right? Any engineering department, you could just change to that department. And I was like, wait, really? So I spoke with 3 or 4 departments here, and they were so gracious to give me the opportunity of basically choosing. And it ended up right where I started at my first internship in college in civil site design. Just since giving it more of a chance this time, it was so much more than what I saw as an intern. And it's been absolutely amazing. It was a great opportunity, good switch up for me too.
So when you were in the environmental scientist role in the first, what'd you say, 6 months of your role at American Structurepoint, is that role a field role? So you're out in the field, you're not in the office, you are out in the field, what, 90% of the time or?
Yeah, so in the summer, it was probably like 75% of the time, but then it was winter, and all I was doing was writing reports. And I'm already not that, I would say, detail oriented in my language, and those reports have to be, I mean, spot on. Otherwise, you're getting marked up like crazy because NDOT is the reviewer typically, and it's very specific language. So that just was not. I mean, when it came to the winter months, I did like being outside and that was fun. It did get a little hot after so many visits, but once I was inside writing reports, it was very clear that this wasn't for me.
How did that first role, though, prepare you for the next role?
It's kind of neat because not many people do that, obviously, and not many people have that environmental background. So now I'm really able to help my clients and developers understand the permitting process before we even start our design. So oftentimes, maybe a developer will want to take a piece of ground and put a hotel on it, for example, and they might call us about it and ask us to do it. Well, if you don't have any reference up to what the permitting is, that timeline could really extend far out. So being able to explain that to them and give them some background on that permitting process and at least be knowledgeable enough to explain it, understand it, has been really important, I think.
How long have you been at American Structurepoint?
I just had my 5-year anniversary in June.
Great.
So,
Congratulations.
yeah, thanks.
That's great. So this is your first, I don't know if I want to say real job. It's every job is a real job, right?
Yeah.
This is your first job outside of college where you are a full-time employee doing what you went to school to do. Now you're a project manager, not an engineer, although of course, you're always an engineer. Once an engineer, always an engineer. But your role there is as a project manager. Tell me how that role is different than the engineering role you were in prior to taking this position as a PM.
Yeah, it's really interesting because, yeah, you're always in engineering and that's where you get your expertise. It is fast paced here, I will say, the journey to being a project manager, but within the first 1 to 3 years, you really cut your teeth on design and you're just cranking out different projects nonstop, really, for all different types of developers. You're doing industrial, commercial, residential, a little bit of everything, what we do here. And then as you kind of transition and gain experience, you're interacting more with clients. So that's a really nice thing about civil site design and being a civil site engineer is it's mostly on the private side. We do have some public projects, maybe some federal projects, but you're working with private local developers and you really have to build that client base. So you have the opportunity to go the more technical route where maybe you're designing, that's just what you want to do. You started in engineering, you want to stick with that and just hone your craft. We have people that like to do that. Or there's the other route where you can kind of go into more project management, business development, you're meeting with clients, you're winning work, you're writing proposals. So that was the route I really wanted to choose, basically, because I really like interacting with people and the relationship aspect of it. Well, I love the design, and that's why I stayed in civil site. The project management and people management is kind of what intrigues me most.
Do you have your PMP? Do you feel like you need to have your PMP? Is it beneficial for the role you're in?
Yeah, so actually someone just asked me that out here. Not many people have it who are project managers within engineering. The license that I would 100% recommend, and I still am working on getting, is the professional engineering license. So that's just your PE.
Yep, the PE. Right, right.
Yep, exactly. So I'm an engineering intern currently, and I'm eligible to get it next year. So I need to start studying for that. But that is kind of, that's the gold standard. That's what every civil engineer should work towards because that's your stamp and you can say, hey, these are my plans. And it's definitely a necessity, I would say, within civil engineering.
That's an important credential that, it tells your client that you are have the technical skills to perform the work that they need.
100%. Yeah. And
Yeah.
when a client hires us, you're paying for that stamp too, because if you're developing in Westfield, Carmel, they're not going to accept your plans without a professional engineer stamping them. So working at American Structure Point, obviously there's plenty of engineers who can stamp your drawings, but it still adds value to yourself as well.
So, as a project manager at American Structure Point, are you no longer doing the design process? Instead, you're kind of working with the client to make sure that the project is happening kind of on time and budget, et cetera?
We're doing a little bit of both. It's kind of like a hybrid role a little bit. Ideally, it would be fully just you're managing the project, the budget, you're scheduling people to work on it. You're talking to the client about maybe hurdles, timelines, like you mentioned. But right now, we're kind of at a point where sometimes you do just have to hop into the design and get it done. We're just so busy at this point. But I do have a good team, and it's nice you can just delegate at some point, but then maybe they're bogged down with something else, so you're going to have to hop in and change something real quick. Now, the more senior you get, ideally you're not in CAD is the software we use. You're not in that at all, and you're strictly just, emails, talking to clients, organization items. But it kind of happens project to project, just depends.
I was at an event a few months back, a nonprofit event with Dream Alive. And I heard the president and CEO of American Structure Point speak at that event. And I recognized that there's an emphasis at American Structure Point on the hiring of women and diverse populations and minorities. And I loved to see that, particularly because, as we know, engineering is a field that's predominantly, I think just by the stats, it's predominantly white men. So tell me about your personal experience there as a woman in a male-dominated field.
It's been interesting, that's for sure. And then I feel like it even started in school, and then in my internships, and then now. And I've been extremely blessed just with the opportunities I've had and the leaders I've had too. I mean, that's a huge, huge thing in this field. If you have the right people leading you, it obviously helps a lot. But you still have the every once in a while stereotype or rude comments or kind of locker room talk, I'll say, on certain calls. So that has been interesting to navigate. And I would say at the beginning, it really did, like, I would let small things maybe hurt my self-confidence a little bit. But now in my career, I'm at a point where I'm confident in my ability to do my job and know that I'm good at my job. So I don't let those things impact me as much as I feel like I did. Plus, like I said, I have really good mentors that give me space to speak in a room and kind of lift me up, so to speak.
Are those mentors, I'm just curious, are those mentors men or women or a combination of both?
Yeah, so like you said, because most people at this company and in the engineering field across all companies, I would assume, is majority men. My 3 leaders above me are all men, but they specifically, I would say, are the ones that have helped me kind of find my voice in the field. And maybe it's as small as we're on a call and I'm the lead engineer on it, but somebody's asking my boss the question. Well, he knows I know the answer, so maybe he reframes the question and says it to me. Small things like that that just make a lot of difference. And then, that contractor knows, okay, Kylie does know what she's talking about. He has confidence in her. She's the one who designed it. I'm going to have confidence in her as well. So those 3 above me have been great. And then there's also people internal to American Structure Point that don't necessarily do what I do, but they are females and I look up to them. And we've been, I feel like, coordinating, helping each other. It's just good to bounce ideas and kind of every once in a while just rant a little bit about things. Stories that if you're a guy, you don't understand what it's like going on a construction site, right? Sometimes. Sometimes it's good just to bounce stories off, but also just build each other up. And yeah, so that's been really good too. It's a good close-knit community for sure.
You mentioned that it was a little thing, but it's a little action for him to call out and reframe and direct the question to you, but it's with huge impact, right? Because even if we can't come to consensus, we all want to feel like our voice is heard. And you as the lead engineer should absolutely be the one answering those questions. So I'm really glad to hear that you are working with a team of people or leaders that are above you that recognize that. They recognize your talent. They redirect the questions from clients to you, that you are the lead engineer and you can answer those technical questions for them. And that helps your client have confidence, right? So I
Yep.
love to hear that. Tell me about this podcast that you started. I want to hear about this.
Yep. So it's called Cheers with Engineers.
Mm-hmm.
And I just kind of had an idea, kind of what we're talking about now. When I started in engineering, I had no clue all the different types of engineering or really what you could do with it. It's just such a broad term. And you hear the word engineer, and I mean, I always thought of like mechanical engineers doing designs for cars or parts and stuff like that, and using your hands. And there's just so many different facets to it. So I thought it might be neat, both as like a recruiting technique for American Structurepoint, but also just kind of like the point of your podcast is just meeting new people and hearing their stories and their experiences of why they chose which engineering field they chose. So basically set out, and it wasn't meant to be all women, but I'm a part of an all-female organization called Indie Crew,
Mm-hmm.
and I sent out a blast on Crew, and so many female engineers replied. And so most of my podcast guests were women, and it's just been fun to hear their stories and all different types of engineering that you wouldn't even think of, like acoustic engineering. Had no clue what that was, and just something you don't think about, but really, really interesting people. And I would go to Purdue with StructurePoint to do some recruiting sessions, or we would do panels, and they can ask all the engineers questions and stuff. And I would put my podcast out there just so if you're in a first year engineering program, you can figure out what other opportunities might be out there. And I don't know, yeah, hear a little bit about it.
Cheers with Engineers. That's what you said is the title of it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
great.
the cheers part is because I was going to be drinking wine with my guests. So I didn't end up doing that for every recording, but I would
I love it.
introduce whatever wine I was drinking, even though I'm not a wine connoisseur at all.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the time it was Costco wine. But that was the
It's all
premise
wine.
behind it.
Hey, even $2 Chuck counts, okay? That Trader
Yep.
Joe's red wine, right? I'm interested. You mentioned something earlier. You said, right now I'm an engineering intern, but then you also said you're a lead engineer. And when I think intern, I think about
Yeah.
your experience getting exposure in a role in a company while you're still in college. Can you help me understand what you mean by that and help our listeners
Yeah.
understand that?
Yep. It is a little confusing. And the term, so if you go to my LinkedIn, you type Kylie Bright-Schuler, at the end of my name, it'll say E.I. And that stands for engineering intern. So it's not necessarily the role of an intern, but that is the stage in my licensure that I'm at. So you get your EI license, and then after your years of experience, you're able to get and take your test for the PE license. So just because somebody has EI doesn't mean they're actually an intern. It's just where they're at in their licensure journey. But yeah, that is confusing.
That makes sense. So generally, how long are you an intern in your licensure before you become
Yeah.
an engineer?
You ideally take your FE, it's Fundamentals of Engineering. You take that exam right after school or during school. Some schools require it to graduate, that you just take it. So you would take that during school, and then as soon as you pass that and you have your degree, you're able to get your license as the EI, engineering intern license. And then if you graduated from an ABET accredited school in engineering, you have 4 years then of experience within that field to then sit for your PE. And then you have to take another test and get your exam. So for me, it's actually 6 years because of my unique degree path that I took. So I'll be next year, May 2026, that I'm able to sit for my PE.
Do you have a favorite project that you're allowed to talk about that you can share with
Wow.
us today?
Yeah, there's behind me, I guess, are a few of our cool projects that we've worked on. But one that just sticks out to me, I'm only 5 years in, but I don't think I could top this project just because it's at my alma mater at Purdue. But basically, a donor came and said, hey, I want to donate $20 million for a new golf clubhouse facility. And they were also at the same time going to rework the road up at Purdue. So this ginormous new clubhouse, very visible project, huge for the school and for the community right there on Cherry Lane. Was one of the coolest things I ever had to work on. I got to go to Purdue, obviously, like once a month for meetings. Now for it to be done and to go on site and see that that's what I've worked on, and I mean, there's no topping that. So
Yeah, that's really cool. I could see that. So, what's something about being an engineer that you think people don't know or don't understand?
So I think maybe the most common misconception and stereotype is that engineers are, you're at your desk, you're not talking to anybody, you're socially awkward. There's, yeah, you're at your desk and you're not talking to people. Basically, is kind of the stereotype that I learned, and people still think that for sure. And you'll have that every once in a while, I'll say, just because that's the type of people. If you do want to be at your desk and be at a computer, like I mentioned, the two different paths, project manager, you can do technical. So the people that stay technical, maybe they don't want to be as interactive, but really civil site design specifically is really interactive with so many different people. And you have to lead a team and design this project effectively. You're not only talking to people internal that you might be comfortable with, but you have to coordinate with the client daily, and you're talking to municipalities. So as you're developing something in Carmel, you need to make sure that the planning department is on board with your project. So you're speaking at town council meetings, you're presenting at plan commission, and you really do have to be an extrovert in that way when it comes to that, or at least try to be, and get your project across the finish line for your clients. So there's a lot of more social interaction than I feel like people think. And you're leading the project from a very early stage right up until construction starts.
So, what kinds of either classes at Purdue or maybe on the job training once you're hired helps prepare you for that aspect of the role? I mean, we know
Yeah.
that you're getting the technical training, right? You gain the technical chops through your time at Purdue, but are there specific types of training or skill building or classes or on the job training that where they really help you build out those soft skills to prepare you for that aspect of the role, which seems really critical to the work you're doing?
Honestly, no, there's
Yeah.
not. And that's across, I mean, most companies. There is not something that teaches you how to talk in front of people. Maybe your speech class would at school, but how to interact with people, how to lead people. There's not at least something at school that teaches you that. Like you said, it's soft skills you learn along the way, which I think makes those type of engineers so much more unique and desirable to hire because they have those maybe already. Because it is hard to develop that when you don't have even a starting point for it. But I will say, at least at Structure Point, they're trying to do a better job of turning engineers into these leaders and project managers, because only so much of it can come to you naturally. Like, okay, if I'm good at public speaking, okay, I can present this project that I'm technically knowledgeable on. But leading a group of people and managing a budget or managing a project to be under budget, that's a whole different set of
Skill set.
skills that
That's right.
that needs to be developed. So we're trying to do stuff internally. There are like some external project management boot camps, they call them, that might be technical people across Indianapolis or wherever they bring their services to. But there's nothing really that everyone does. So it's just if your company is going to sponsor you, like if I were to go out and find a program that I think would really benefit me, I could present it to my company and I know they would send me. But it's not something across the board that all engineers are doing, which is actually really interesting. And I'm a big advocate for that. So we need to keep it going.
It sounds like American Structure Point sees that need and they're, as an employer, taking steps to help prepare, their engineering workforce to have all those skills or to further develop them, at least the ones that want to develop them. I remember when I worked at Rolls-Royce many years ago, noticing such a difference between, there's no judgment here. I'm not, but this is Amy's HR hat on, but I'm not, I don't want to be offensive at all. But I just remember walking the halls of Rolls-Royce and the older generation, okay, this is 20 years ago, 15 years ago, but the older generation of engineers literally would walk through the halls with their eyes down. You would barely get a hello. And
Mhm.
not that they weren't friendly, just locked in, focused, introverted, right? But then I would see all these brand new, fresh out of college engineers walking around, and they were joining committees. They were doing all kinds of fun projects outside of their regular workday. They really fed on kind of being connected to the rest of the workforce and not just doing the specific role they were hired to do. Had very good communication skills, which I attributed to, kind of learning some of that through college or other internships or whatever it might be. But certainly it felt like to me, and I was working in recruiting at that time, that there was a bigger focus on training our engineers to be more well-rounded and not just have the technical skill, and it really prepared them for the workforce. So certainly I think it's a response from the employers that need talent to find those people, or if they don't have that skill when they join, kind of help equip them with it.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so let's talk about what's next for you. Anything fun on the horizon, fun projects you're working on at American Structurepoint, or personally something that's going on in your life that's fun that you're looking to do?
Well, I am starting to study for my PE exam, so
Yeah.
that's
A year
definitely on.
a year ahead, huh? It's that intense.
Yeah, because I definitely want to take it right away. It's not something you want to just sit and wait for. So the fact that it's looming there, I just want to be prepared and study and hopefully knock it out. So definitely that is looming over me. But we just have, yeah, we have so many projects right now, so there's not a shortage of different things going on. We're trying to get involved in things happening at Grand Park and
Love that.
just, yeah. So a lot of cool local things we're trying to be involved in, and it's always fun to do those fun projects that are local.
Love that. Tell me about your routine, your morning routine. What's a day in the life, a morning in the life for Kylie?
It just depends. That's the nice thing about civil site. It just depends every day. Like on Friday, I had a golf outing with some clients, but today I actually worked from home in the morning because I had a pre-con in Westfield. So
Pre-con?
um,
Tell me what pre-con is.
pre-construction, sorry, yeah, pre-construction meeting.
That's
So
good.
that's our project. We got it through the permitting process. Our job's done. We're basically handing it off to the contractors. And with City of Westfield, we sat down and basically they talked through their process to make sure everyone's on the same page. So had
Okay.
that this morning. But typically, yeah, I would just come in, sit at my desk, and maybe go through my emails, work with staff to figure out where they're at on projects, what they need from me, what information from clients they need, maybe potentially connecting people with the right people to get the right answers. And then I might also do a review of the whole civil plan set. So throughout our days as we're compiling these sets, we obviously want to have a thorough QA/QC process. So at some point it might come to me and I would do a thorough review. So that might be throughout my day. But then, yeah, a lot of project meetings as well and just check-ins with clients, but also contractors.
Got it. Do you like to read, Kylie?
I do like to read. I've actually picked it up this year again. I deleted like TikTok and Instagram earlier
Okay.
this year, and I'm
Good for
like, wow, I
you.
have so much time. So I've
What are you
been,
reading?
yeah. What am I reading?
Yeah. What are you reading?
I am reading. Well, I just finished the A Court of Thorn and Roses series.
Okay. Yes.
I didn't expect to like that, but absolutely loved it.
Everybody
And
says that.
oh, it's so good. Yeah,
Everybody. Yeah.
lessons in chemistry though. I mean, if you're like all
Oh,
about women
yes.
in STEM, you got to read that book. That
Yeah.
is definitely one of my favorite books I've ever read, probably. But yeah, I read that this year. And then right now, I think I'm queued up at the library to check out Every Summer After.
Okay. Haven't
So
heard of
that's
that one.
a
Have to check that
yeah
out.
trendy summer book that
Okay.
people have been reading and recommending.
Great.
So
Kylie, if you could give a piece of advice to, I'm going to focus on women. So a young woman that's interested in going into the field of engineering, or a more seasoned woman who wants to maybe do a complete pivot and career change and look into engineering, what advice would you give?
yeah, so kind of what I touched on earlier about my fears originally and maybe lacking the self-confidence to say what I need to say in a room. I would say that I would give the advice to just be confident in your voice. And if you are knowledgeable in your field and you are valued, your opinion should be valued, and you worked what your way here. So don't sell yourself short, really.
Yeah, I love that. You've talked a little bit too earlier about the importance of mentorship. And that seems to be a reoccurring theme that I hear with my guests often is around the importance of mentorship. Is that something that you kind of fell into, or did you seek that out purposely?
Yeah, a little bit of both. One thing, again, that Structure Point does is they pair you with a mentor. And it's kind of luck of the draw, I will say. But my mentor, he doesn't work here anymore, but he is, I mean, a big reason of why I was able to be brought up to speed so quickly and excel, I feel like, at this company. So that was definitely just given to me and kind of fell into my lap. And it's kind of been a few of those type of people have just been there, and it's just worked out that they've been so amazing to work with and have really made me grow the way I have. And then some of it has been sought out. So, I was lacking that women mentorship because all my mentors internally in my group here have been male. So, getting involved in an organization like Indie Crew, where it's not even engineering focused, but it's really just women supporting women. And I have learned that has been huge because although people might not understand what I do day to day or the technical aspect of what I need to grow in my career that way, it's been great to just lean on other mentors in different industries and just understand how they got to where they're at and just give me confidence in myself.
The power of mentorship and networking just cannot be, overstated. So thank you for
That's
sharing
true.
that. Kylie, thank you for your time today. I really appreciate you. It's an interesting journey into engineering, particularly as a woman. And I love that you were able to share your story today. And I've learned a lot. I knew very little, so this has been very informative for me. So thanks for your time, and thanks for being a guest on The People of Work.
Thank you for having me, Amy. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. Take care. Thanks for tuning in to The People of Work. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to follow along and share it with someone who'd love these stories too. Do you or someone you know have a unique job or an inspiring work journey? I'd love to hear about it. You can find me on Instagram at The People of Work or visit thepeopleofwork.com. And if you're navigating a career transition or just need support in your work life, I'm here for that too. From personal coaching to leadership and HR consulting, I'd love to help. Head to thepeopleofwork.com to learn more and get in touch. Until next time, thanks for being a part of The People of Work.